Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is Cancer 3 Decan video. I can't believe we're already at the end of the Cancer Decan. I feel like this is going so fast, which is crazy, but true. So, as usual, I'll talk a little bit how these cards showed themselves, how this Decan presented itself to me, and then we will change our cards out and see what new things are coming through. It is a very doomy, gloomy day. We are in the tail end of the hurricane barrel. It has now been downsized to a tropical depression. So it's very overcast. It keeps raining all off and on. And it's not very pleasant out. So hopefully this lighting's good because the electricity keeps kind of going in and out and I can't turn on my lights because it just really messes things up. So this will be maybe kind of a faster video. I don't think so, but maybe. First things first, all of this stuff staying up here. None of that's changing, right? The very interesting thing about the Three of Cups is I had said in the previous video that it always tends to be like my loved ones, like my soul tribe, like my people, which is, you know, my family. This tends to be like my mom, me and my niece, or at other times it's been me and my other two nieces. So like it's always usually women. Sorry, my phone's not turned off. It's usually always women. And my women, like the women that I enjoy spending time with, my soul tribe, like I said. So the interesting thing about it is I did get to see my mom and my niece in person right at the very beginning of this Decan, but a lot of the Decan was spent talking to them on FaceTiming them or texting them or on the phone with them, different things like that, which I think that's the energy of Mercury coming through, right? That communication through technology, right? So I feel like that was very much a big part of what went on with this card in this Decan for me. Um, I feel like a lot of it was like manifesting it. Like I would like want to talk to my mom, so all of a sudden she'd call me, or I'd want to talk to my niece and I'd call her, and all of a sudden the phone would ring once and she'd pick it up. So it was like it was very an interesting combination of energies happening. Uh, that's pretty much how I can describe how these things came about. It it was a weird, it was a little bit of a weird Decan, to tell you the truth. A little bit different than what I was expecting to feel with this. Nothing bad, just very strange occurrences, very strange things. I feel like maybe it had the chariot had influence over that as far as just the strange events that took place during this Decan made a concrete decision. Like it was like a decision that had been sitting on the fence and something happened that made it go one way or the other, no ifs and buts. And I kind of feel like maybe that's like that drive and that directional pull of the chariot. So I kind of feel like there was a little bit of all of this in a way, but in a different, it presented itself in a way that I wasn't really expecting. So it was really quite different and interesting. All right, let's get in here. Let's change out our cards. We have some change cards. We have some card changes happening. So let's do that right now. Okay, so we are leaving the Mercury energy and we are going into the moon. Let me start with my RWs here. So we are switching out the Magician and we are going in with the High Priestess. And the Three of Cups is now leaving us, and we're going into the Four of Cups. Get all straightened out here. The Chariot is staying with us. And here's our Hermetic Tarot, the Four of Cups, and the High Priestess. So the Four of Cups, the Hermetic Tarot, it is Lord of Blended Pleasure. And the High Priestess is Priestess of the Silver Star. We have our moon card, which is coming in. And then these little extra energies that are over here existing, we are changing out. The Queen of Cups is leaving us. And we are bringing in the Knight of Wands. So here's the RW. And then in the Hermetic Tarot, it is Lord of Flame and Lightning. Wow, that's crazy. All right. It's a really, there's a lot of movement in this card. We'll take a look at it after. I just wasn't expecting it to be so like, like a lot of movement, like a lot of aggression, like a lot of forward motion. All right, so let's start looking at all of this. We're gonna read about, let's read about the moon with the stars divine. Let's see what that energy is about. This lovely lunar energy. All right, we've got the moon is intuitive, reflective, soulful, and introspective. It connects to the subconscious and unconscious psyche. Emotional security is a driving force. It is both nurturer and child. Oh, I can already see how this is going to kind of influence over all of this. And then we know our high priestess with the RW, we know the Four of Cups, and we know the Chariot. So the interesting thing about the Four of Cups is, to me, it's always about like boredom, like a state of boredom, or just unable to be satisfied, not interested in anything that's being offered. To me, I see it as kind of like just kind of having enough of what you need or that you want. And when the universe offers you more, you're kind of like, I'm good, thanks. I don't need no more. Kind of like that. I always really think about how he's sitting with his arms crossed. How that is very much a stance of like closure or resistance, right? Like think about when a kid like crosses his arms and stamps his feet, right? Like it's very much about that closure. When I'm doing Reiki, people who when I teach Reiki specifically, even when I'm giving clients Reiki, the first thing I tell everybody: uncross your arms, uncross your legs, because they always lay on the table and automatically cross their arms and cross their legs, and it's like a form of almost like protection, right? Like that closing in, putting a shield, like a physical shield around self. So I always tell everyone, like, uncross your legs, uncross your arms. You gotta let this flow, let this go, right? So definitely a thing that I get from that is that very, like, he's in a very closed in stance, like, don't want no more, thank you, but no thank you kind of attitude. At least that's how I always saw the Four of Cups. But I'm sure once I get into this book, she's gonna say things that have kind of changed my mind on stuff, and then I'm gonna be like, I never even thought of it like that, right? Because that's what happens. The Four of Cups in Hermetic Tarot is really quite beautiful. We'll get in here and look at this a little bit closer. But let's look at the book right now. Let's look at what Susan says about all of this. So in her book, she says how it's a complex card because it's almost opposing states, right? It's like that scarcity versus surplus, that temptation versus apathy. The outstretched hand offers a cup of who knows what. Is it wine, arsenic, divine grace, freedom from pain? What is it? Whatever it is, our jaded friend is having none of it, or so it seems. That's really interesting. I've never even thought about looking at it from the terms of what's in the cup. I always just assumed it was like an emotional blessing or like an emotional feeling, like the things that cups typically stand for, right? I've never thought about it being maybe something that we don't want. Maybe it is something that's not good. Maybe maybe it is poison, right? But at the same time, I feel that maybe that's an emotional stance where we've had so much happen to us that we automatically distrust any type of offering or gift that comes forward. And maybe it's kind of more applying that as well, right? Where we've been jaded and we're just like, yeah, I don't trust that. I'm not taking it. It's too good to be true, right? So it can have kind of like that energy around it as well. She says to her, it seems like it's a like boredom, a refusal to the call. And I can totally see all of that in that. That is how I would tend to see it. So she also talks about how great desire attached to luxuries you cannot or do not have. But once you get them, almost always your desire fades. And that is so true. That happens a lot to me with tarot cards and decks and stuff. I want them so much. I'm so attracted to them. I'm like, yes, this is perfect. I love it. This is so me. And then I get the deck and I get it here and I start flipping through it. And I'm like, this isn't what I expected. I'm not getting the same feelings that I got when I saw it online. Now that it's here in person, I don't have that same attraction to it, right? And then it's funny because on the flip side of that, I've had decks that I've bought and where I've been like, meh, I don't know if I really want it, but I'll grab it. And it gets here and I freaking love it. And it's becomes very quickly a staple in my collection. So it's weird how that happens, right? And I can see that energy existing in this card as well, right? And in her book, she talks about how she was spending time with her daughter and they were looking at the card together. And she said to her, why do you think he's not taking the card? And she says, because it's already full. And then that made Susan start to think. When we are hungry for food, we eat and our bodies are satisfied. When we are hungry for things, whether that's cash and prizes or non tangible things like approval, it's hard to know when we're full. No sooner do we buy a tarot card deck than we want another tarot card deck. Exactly, 100%. Even so, we can still arrive at the point of diminishing returns, maybe even non existent returns. And she talks to how in the card that there's clues in the card. He isn't starving nor poor nor ragged like the poor souls in the Five of Pentacles, right? That are wandering in the snow just outside of a church window. The clue is in the stillness of the setting around this person. The leaves are hanging motionless and heavy on the tree. There's no breeze, there's nothing blowing, there's no movement in the card. It's very stale. And she says in her book it's he's dissatisfied with the status quo. He is bored. It could be that he has lost his sense of novelty and adventure because he has stayed too long in one place. She refers to it as the awakening under the Bodhi tree, the Buddha story, and talks about how that kind of can refer to that as well. But she also talks about, and we're going to go back to it, I mentioned it before when she said it, the refusal of the call. So she says another way to interpret the down gaze of the Four of Cups is the refusal of the call. The call that is coming from the unconscious. The call is literally coming from inside the house, inside of us, right? It might be the moment where we commit to a job or marriage. It might be a midlife crisis. It might be something like a nervous breakdown. In every case, the shadow of the unknown calls for the attention. And it refers to that not taking care of what needs to be taken care of, not paying attention to our body, our mind, our soul, our spirit, and listening to what our body wants or what our soul needs, right? So it's like not answering that call, not heeding the call, right? When there's something that needs to change, when there's something that needs to go, and we're just ignoring it and are putting it off to the side, right? Once again, it goes back to that cup being an emotion, right? Ignoring that emotion, ignoring that feeling that's coming forward, right? So she also talks about how in the Book of Thoth, the charioteer on this card is thought to be bearing the precious contents of the grail, that looking for what's special inside of us, right? Searching for our holy grail internally. But then she talks about how the high priestess comes in. And she's holding that book of secrets, right? That scroll. And she's hiding all of the secrets of knowledge in her folds of her robe. And it's telling you that you must discover these secrets for yourself. And she's not going to tell you because remember, she's a silent card where the Hierophant is about the outspeaking, out being loud and speaking about the secret, the truth, the knowledge. She's very much about containing it, keeping it quiet, keeping it hidden, keeping it to herself. But the High Priestess, Hebrew letter, is, I believe we pronounce it Gemel, which means camel, which means we hold our own source of water within. Whatever you need, whatever you're supposed to have, whatever you're supposed to do, by silencing the outer voices and looking deep within ourselves, the answers are already there. We already have them. And that's what the High Priestess brings to this situation. So she says, if you look at it, the High Priestess is the repository of the meaning, and the Chariot is the vehicle to find that meaning. So she says all along, maybe what we fail to understand is the meaning is imminent. It's already there. Wherever you go, there you are. It's already here. We already have it. We already know what we want. We already know what we're looking for. We already know. We already have what we need. We already have what we want. We already have it all, right? So that's very interesting. It's a very interesting way to look at that card. So she also talks about how maybe the figure under the tree isn't bored. Maybe his inner eye is focused on something we cannot see. So maybe more in the form of a meditation, right? He's sitting and meditating. So that's a very interesting way to look at it, is that this character is actually meditating under this tree. So she also then goes on to talk about how she gets this card a lot. This card is a big card in her life. I get it on occasion. I don't get it a whole heck of a lot, but I do get it at times. It is a card that I do see from here to there. Over the years, she's learned that the Two of Cups represent excitement of a new interest. The Three of Cups represents the curiosity being satisfied, and the Four represents the restlessness that comes next. It also comes up for her, like I said at the beginning, it comes up for like time of meditation, time where she maybe gets back more deeper into her practice of meditating and stillness and intercontemplating and just that quietness that happens with meditation, right? It can also manifest as moodiness, a casting without finding what one wants. It also can be dream work for her, or journey work, or journeying work, journaling, stuff like that. A way of letting go what you think you want and finding what you need. But for her, she says that she finds that the biggest key word for it is enough. And she says it's either I have enough, thank you, I don't need any more. But it can also mean I've had enough, something needs to change. And also how grateful I am to have enough. My needs are being met, I am fulfilled. And it can even come across as I'm tired of only having enough. I want more. That's so interesting, that concept of the keyword being enough. And there's, like I just said, there's so many different ways to look at that word enough and what that means, right? So maybe it's not boredom, maybe it's just having enough, right? And maybe it's one of those enoughs that I just said, right? Because those are all very different ways of interpreting the word enough. And then she says her takeaway from it all is when you draw the Four of Cups, you're most likely going to be experiencing its empty effects as boredom or restlessness. She talks about what is the true prize the priestess holds, and to what lengths must the chariot go to find it. So she says, instead of rolling your eyes at the Four of Cups next time you get it, consider it an invitation. Maybe stop at an intersection where you get to choose what you do next. Listen to your dissatisfied voices inside of you till they quiet down. They will tell you what's not leading you towards purpose and fulfillment, right? So maybe it's about a little bit more time spending time under that tree, meditating and contemplating and thinking about what you really want in life, what you really desire, what will satisfy you. or maybe realizing what doesn't satisfy you and what needs to stop. A lot of the time, I feel like we'd face this a lot nowadays because we're in this world of consumerism where we're constantly buying and feeling like we need something new. And it's that quick little pick me up, that quick little fix. Uh, and we never really stop to think to ourselves, well, maybe we shouldn't buy it. Maybe we don't need it. Maybe we really don't want it. We just think we do, right? So definitely a lot of things to think about when it comes to this card. A lot of concepts. All right, let's get in here. Let's read about these two new cards from the Hermetic Tarot. We're going to flip this, and then we're going to talk about just a little bit, because like I said, these are extra energies. I have them here because they're in the Decan wheel, but I don't visit them very often because I find that they can just add a little bit too much. I really wanted to keep this super simple. I even considered eliminating these, but they're in the Decan wheel, so I wanted them to be at least present. But we don't go into those too deep. All right, let's look at the Hermetic Tarot. Four of Cups. Let's start with the High Priestess. Let's start with the High Priestess. So I'm going to hold this card up so you can see it. So it is the Princess of the Silver Star, which is beautiful. All right, and I'm going to read. The moon appears above the seated priestly figure of Isis, the eternal virgin. She is adorned in the purest feminine light of the moon, the same light that serves as a veil to hide the moon, the same light that serves as a veil to hide the eternal spirit. The high priestess holds upon her knee a book, partially concealed by her mantle, which holds the truth about the veil of the feminine light. At her breast she holds a lyre, the law of Artemis, for she is also a huntress, and, like Diana, she hunts by enchantment. This card rules the path of the camel that runs from Kether to Tepethara. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, on the Tree of Life. The same path runs between the two gigantic pillars, besides the throne upon which the high priestess is majestically seated. The high priestess controls the energy of life between the two pillars that are topped by spiraling pentacles. At the bottom of the card, we have a large spheres of her throne. Some researchers view the seated figure in the card as the illustrious and controversial Pope Joan, who allegedly reigned during the Middle Ages of the 9th century. Okay, once again, take a look at that. It's beautiful. All right, Four of Cups. Let's take a look at this one. I love the cup cards in the Hermetic Tarot. They're so beautiful with all that flowing water. I think they're gorgeous. Okay, so it is called Lord of Blended Pleasure. A flower rises up in the center of the card, from which water issues into two cups. The upper cups, in turn, overflow into the two lower cups, which do not overflow. This card has leaves instead of flowers, suggesting pleasure approaching an end. Thus, the two lower cups do not overflow. From the center, two leaves pass from right to left, forming a cross composed of stems of the taller flower and leaves. A large quarter moon appears at the top, and the symbol for Cancer appears above and below. All right. And there we go. We'll look at it once again now that we know what's going on. So there we've got our moon symbols above and down here below, the crescent moon up above, and we've got this beautiful stem coming up with the leaves, making that cross, and then we've got all the water coming down, but these two aren't overflowing, right? Very interesting symbolism. We've already talked about the Chariot in the last video, so I'm not going to revisit them again. And then let's look at our cards. Remember, our Moonology cards sometimes are a little off. So we're in the waxing crescent. Have faith in your dreams. I feel like I can go into that too with this card because it's kind of like that not knowing, right? If your dream's going to work, being maybe bored, maybe you've tried a bunch of different ways to get your dream and it's just not manifesting and the figure in your card is sitting down like damn, like this isn't working and is kind of just not for it. Maybe things have been difficult to receive your wants and your dreams and your things up to this point. And maybe now that there's something offering them to you, you're kind of like, you know what, maybe I don't even want it. Right. So I can kind of see how that comes into all of this, honestly. Sometimes these are a hit, sometimes these are a miss, that's for sure. All right. And then we were swapping out the Queen of Cups. So we are still, these are those little extra lying energies. We still have the Ace of Wands and the Page of Wands. Our new card is the Knight of Wands. So in the Hermetic Tarot, here's our Ace of Wands and not a page, a Princess of Wands. And then here's the new Knight of Wands card that's come in. It is Lord of Flame and Lightning. Like, look at that, eh? So much emotion and movement and feeling in that. All right, let's read about it. Let's grab that Hermetic Tarot book. Let's read about the Knight of Wands. All right, we've got Lord of the Flame and Lightning. The symbol of fire appears in the top panel of either side of the card. Fire of fire. The winged warrior rides on a black horse with a flaming mane and tail. The rider's headdress is a winged helmet, and he wears a flowing mantle. The symbols for Scorpio and Sagittarius appear beneath the flaming club in the warrior's right hand. All right, so get it out here again. Let's look at that. Okay, so there's our symbols underneath his club. We've got fire and fire, two symbols at the top, right? That is a lot of fire. Which will be interesting to see this passion, this creativity, this drive, this focus that exists in this card and how it plays into the boredomness and displeasure of the Four of Cups, right? I don't know, a lot to think about, right? There's so much going on here. It's kind of made me look at the Four of Cups very differently, and I like it. Not even differently, but added more to it, right? Where it's not just about boredom or being dissatisfied. There's a lot more to it, and I think that that's really interesting. So this Decan exists from July 11th to July 20th. Our next video will be July 21st. We are going into the wands, so we'll be leaving cups. All right, so thank you for watching. Thank you for joining in. Hopefully this has given you some ideas and thoughts behind the Four of Cups. And like I always say, I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy the rest of your week.